In a quiet village where whispers travel faster than the wind, one young woman dares to dream beyond the ordinary. But can Amina hands of clay shape a destiny greater than doubt? Before we dive in, if you are just joining us, please hit the subscribe button and join the gathering. Once upon a time, in a small village called Hauwa, surrounded by hills and farms, lived a young woman named Amina. She was known for her quiet nature, but also for the light in her eyes. That light was called hope. Amina was not like most girls in the village. While many were content with farming, fetching water, cooking, and preparing for marriage, Amina dreamed of something more. She loved using her hands to create things. As a child, she would gather palm leaves, tree bark, and clay from the forest to make small dolls, hand fan, and ornaments. When she got older, she started weaving, sewing, and crafting all kinds of beautiful items using local materials. She believed that with enough effort, these items could be more than just decorations. They could become products that people would want to buy. Amina's father died when she was very young, so her mother, Mama Fati, raised her alone. Life was not easy. There were many days they had to eat once, or not at all. But even in hardship, Mama Fati made sure Amina felt safe and loved. She told her stories about strong women, wise elders, and the beauty of their traditions. Amina listened to every word. Those stories gave her strength and courage. From a young age, Amina believed that her hands could build something that would help her, her mother, and even the whole village. But not everyone shared her belief. Many villagers were skeptical. Some laughed at her. Some told her to stop wasting time and find a husband. She should be learning how to cook, not playing with leaves and ropes. One woman said, "Who will buy village crafts? What does she know about business?" Others asked. Amina heard it all, but she refused to let their words crush her spirit. She continued to gather materials, design new items, and improve her craft. She started writing down her ideas in a small handmade notebook. She dreamed of starting a business, something small but powerful. At first, her biggest problem was getting supplies, but she had no money. So she offered to help neighbors carry water or clean their compounds in exchange for old cloth, buttons, thread, or calabash shells. She would walk long distances into the forest to collect leaves, wood, and dried flowers. She learned how to make soap from ash and oil. She dyed cloth using natural colors from plants. Everything she made came from the land around her. But making products was only the beginning. She needed customers. She tried to sell in the village, but most people were too poor to buy anything that was not food. Still, a few people noticed the beauty in her work. They complimented her designs. One woman even gave her a little money and said, "You have golden hands." Those words stayed in Amina's heart. Amina also faced the challenge of keeping track of money. She had never gone to school past primary level, so she struggled to calculate profits and expenses. But she was determined. She began asking questions. She asked the local teacher to show her how to add and subtract. She watched how others sold things in the market. Slowly, she began to learn. One of the turning points in Amina's journey came when a woman named Hauwa visited the village from the city. Hauwa was there to see her family, but she passed by Amina home and saw some of her crafts drying in the sun. She stopped and asked, "Who made these?" "My daughter," Mama Fati answered. Hauwa was impressed. "These are beautiful. I sell goods at the market in town. I can take some with me and see if people are interested." Amina was nervous, but she trusted Hauwa and gave her 5 of her best items: a carved calabash cup, 2 colorful baskets, a scented soap set, and a hand-stitched headband. She waited for 2 weeks with hope and fear in her heart. Then Hauwa returned with news. That would change everything. "All your items sold," she said with a smile. "The women in the city loved them. They want more, especially the baskets." Amina's hands trembled. For the first time, she realized her dream could become real. From that day, Amina began to build her business, which she named Amina's Hands. She continued to work hard, waking early and sleeping late. She improved her designs, kept her records better, and began to teach herself more about business. She made a small sign and placed it in front of her hut. Little by little, people began to notice. Some of the same villagers who doubted her began to offer help. Others brought materials. A few even asked her to teach their daughters. Amina welcomed them all with kindness. She also began to save small amounts of money. With time, she bought better tools, improved packaging, and even paid for transport to the city market. She started receiving small orders from nearby town. She made sure every item carried the pride of her village. But her journey was not smooth. There were weeks when her supplies didn't arrive. There were times when the rains spoiled her products. Once a big order got lost on the way to town and she had to remake everything from scratch. There were nights when she cried in frustration, but she never gave up. She remembered what her mother once told her. Even the biggest tree starts from a seed. You just have to keep watering it. Amina's story spread beyond her village. Other young people came to visit. Some wanted to learn. Others wanted to buy. More and more people began to see her not as a girl with strange ideas, but as a businesswoman. A village girl who turned her hands into tools of change. By the time she turned 23, Amina had created something more than a business. She had created a movement. She was no longer working alone. She had a friend who helped with marketing, an old teacher who guided her, a craftsman who taught her lost techniques, and even some of the elders who once doubted her now called her our pride. But through it all, Amina remained humble. She still sat under the baobab tree to think and create. She still helped her mother fetch water. She still used natural materials and paid respect to the land. When asked what her biggest dream was, Amina said simply, "I want every girl in every village to know that her hands can build more than just food or fire. They can build a future." Every village has its elders, the ones who sit under treehold walking stick and speak with the weight of experience. In Amina's village, one of the most respected elders was Baba Danladi. Baba Danladi was not rich, nor he was the village head, but people listened when he spoke. They said he remembered the time when the village had no roads, no borehole, and no school. He had lived through hunger, war, peace, and change. He was a man of stories and strong beliefs. He believed in the old ways. To him, there was a way things should be, and anything outside of that is risky. When Amina began making crafts and talking about business, Baba Danladi watched with silent judgment. He sat under the big mango tree near the village square every morning, chewing kola nut, nodding at the people passing by, and listening to everything. His eyes were sharp, even though his back was bent and his beard was white. He noticed Amina passing by with palm leaves, thread, and calabash. He saw her working late while others were preparing food. He heard the laughter of children as they watched her mix colours and shape soap. Baba Danladi did not like it. "It is not our way," he said to the other elders one day. "A girl should be learning to cook, keep a home, and prepare for marriage, not making baskets and talking about customers." Some of the elders agreed. Others stayed quiet. Baba Danladi was not unkind, but he was set in his ways. He remembered a time when one of his daughters had left the village for the city. She had wanted to become a nurse. She was full of fire and ambition, but she returned years later tired, sick, and full of regret. That memory stayed with him like a shadow. So when he saw Amina chasing something beyond the village life, he feared for her. He thought he was protecting her from disappointment. He began saying things out loud. "This girl is wasting time. Who will marry a girl who plays with leaves and mud all day? Let her be careful before she becomes a shame to her family. Amina heard these words. She did not answer back. She only bowed her head in greeting and continued walking. Deep down, she respected Baba Danladi, but she knew that dreams were like seeds they needed time to grow, so she kept working. Over the months, Baba Danladi saw something he did not expect. Amina did not stop. She did not get discouraged, nor fight with people. She worked harder. She greeted everyone with a smile. She gave her small profits to her mother. She even helped sweep the square before market days. She was not lazy. She was respectful. Then something happened that made him pause. Amina's name started being mentioned with pride. People were buying her products in town. She was receiving small orders from visitors. Her name was even brought up during a community meeting. One of the elders said, "That Amina girl is bringing good attention to our village. Maybe we should support her." Baba Danladi said nothing that day, but the words stayed in his heart. That night he sat on his wooden stool alone, thinking. He remembered when he was young and wanted to become a storyteller. His father had refused and told him that stories don't put food on the table, so he had given up that dream. Now here was this girl, young, quiet, and full of spirit, doing what many were afraid to do, trying something different. The next morning, he did something unusual. Instead of going straight to the mango tree, he walked slowly toward Amina's home. He stood at a distance and watched. Amina was mixing oil and herbs, focused on her task. Her hands moved quickly, confidently. He watched for a while, then turned back and returned to his usual seat, under the tree. He didn't speak of it to anyone. But from that day, something inside him began to shift. He no longer spoke against Amina. In fact, he began to defend her gently. One day, when a man mocked Amina for not being married, Baba Danladi said, "She may not have a husband, but she has purpose." When another elder laughed at her baskets, Baba said, "You laugh, but those same baskets paid for her mother's medicine last week." Still, Baba Danladi was not the type to openly praise, so he chose to show respect in his own quiet way. He owned a special carving knife passed down from his grandfather. It had been used to make farm tools, drum handles, and decorative stools. It was old, sharp, and full of history. One morning, he wrapped the carving knife in a piece of cloth and gave it to a boy. "Take this to Amina," he said. "Tell her it's from an old man who now sees better." When Amina received the gift, she was overwhelmed with emotion. She held the knife to her chest and whispered, "Thank you, Baba." Though he never heard the words, somehow he felt them. After that, Amina would sometimes come to sit near the mango tree when she was tired. She never disturbed Baba Danladi. She would just sit, rest. Over time, they began to speak in short sentences. Nothing grand, nothing loud. But something real was growing between them, which is respect. Eventually, Baba Danladi told the village head, "This girl's hands are doing more than weaving. She is connecting generations." And when Amina opened her small workshop to teach village girls, Baba Danladi stand nearby, watching with a soft smile. "She has become a teacher," he said, without standing in a classroom. By the time Baba Danladi turned 75, his opinion had fully changed. He often told the story of Amina to visiting elders, not as a warning, but as a lesson. "I once doubted her," he would say, "but now I see that tradition is not broken by new ideas. It is strengthened by them when we allow room for growth." And so the old man who once sat in judgment became one of Amina's quiet protectors, not because he fully understood her path, but because he had seen her heart. Behind every strong child, there is often a parent who whispered strength into their ears when the world shouted doubt. For Amina, that person was her mother, Mama Fati. Mama Fati was a quiet woman, not known for long speeches or loud laughter, but her silence was not weakness. It was the silence of a woman who had seen life in all its colors, joy, pain, loss, and hope, and still chose to keep walking. She married young, like most village women. Her husband, Malam Bako, was a kind farmer with big hands and a soft voice. They didn't have much, but they loved each other deeply. When Amina was just 6, Malam Bako fell sick after returning from the farm during the rainy season. There was no hospital nearby, only herbs and prayers. Within weeks, he was gone. That day, something in Mama Fati changed. She became both father and mother to her little girl, Amina. She worked in other people's farms, fetched water for elderly women, and swept the mosque courtyard in exchange for small money or food. Her hands became rough and her feet cracked from walking barefoot, but she never once asked, "Why me?" Instead, she asked, "What next?" She taught Amina to be kind, honest, and brave. At night when the stars came out and the crickets sang, Mama Fati would tell Amina stories. "Do you know the tale of Halima the potter?" she once asked. "No, Mama." "She was poor like us, but she believed that if her pots could carry water, they could also carry dreams. She kept moulding, even when people laughed. One day, her pot was chosen to serve the emir's house. From then on, she never lacked." Amina would listen with wide eyes and a fast-beating heart. These stories planted something in her, not just imagination, but belief. When Amina began crafting items from palm leaves, cloth, and clay, Mama Fati did not stop her. Others scolded their daughters for wasting time, but not her. She watched, she encouraged. When Amina brought her the first handmade fan, Mama Fati smiled and said, "You have magic in your fingers." When the villagers mocked her daughter's dream, she said, "Let them talk. Talk does not cook yam." When Amina asked, "What if I fail?" she answered gently, "Even if the first bird falls, the sky does not close. You'll fly again." Though Mama Fati was poor, but she did everything she could to support her daughter's small dream. She helped gather leaves, washed old cloth for reuse, and even gave up her only wrapper so Amina could make patterned headbands. There was one time when Amina cried after a bad market day. Her items didn't sell, and a customer insulted her prices. That evening she sat by the fire with her knees to her chest. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Mama Fati sat in front of her and whispered, "Daughter, do you know how water shapes the stone? Not by force, but by patience. Let your tears fall, but tomorrow you must rise." In many ways, Mama Fati was the first investor in Amina's business, not with money, but with love, time, and belief. As the business began to grow, Amina would come home late, exhausted but joyful. Mama Fati always had warm food waiting, even if it was just bitter leaf soup. She never demanded more than her daughter could give. She never asked Amina to abandon her dream and marry. Instead, she told anyone who asked, "My daughter's husband will be her dream first. The rest will come in God's time." People began to see the strength behind Amina, and they realized much of it came from her mother. One day, a woman in the village mocked Mama Fati, saying, "Your daughter is not married. Are you not ashamed?" Mama Fati replied calmly, "Should I be ashamed that my daughter is feeding me with her hands? Should I be ashamed that she is teaching girls to create, not just to cook? I am not ashamed. I am grateful." When Amina received her first large order from a boutique in the nearby town, it was Mama Fati who stayed up with her at night, helping wrap and count items. When Amina was invited to speak at a women's group in another village, she was afraid. "Mama, what if I say the wrong thing?" Her mother laughed gently. "Speak the truth, my child. Even if your words are simple, the truth shines like moonlight. They will feel it." As time passed, Mama Fati's pride in her daughter grew, but she remained the same modest, calm, and supportive. Amina once told a visitor, "My mother is the soil under my feet. Everything I grow comes from her strength." One rainy season, Mama Fati fell sick. She had worked too hard and too long. Her bones ached and she became weak. Amina stopped everything to care for her. She fed her, bathed her, and whispered the same words that were once spoken to her. "You are strong, Mama. Rest now. Let me carry you, as you once carried me." The villagers saw how Amina cared for her mother, and their respect for both of them deepened. When Mama Fati recovered, she sat in the sun outside their home and watched young girls arriving to learn from Amina. She smiled, her heart full with joy. "I may not have son or riches," she said, "but I have a daughter who builds something from nothing and gives hope to many. To me, is wealth." One morning, Amina brought a surprise. "Mama, this is for you." It was a soft handmade blanket dyed in warm colours. On it were embroidered the words, "To the woman who carried the fire when the world went cold." Mama Fati pressed it to her chest, eyes shining with tears. "You have made me proud," she whispered. "Not just because you succeeded, but because you never forgot who you are." In the heart of the village there stood no statue for Mama Fati, but in Amina's heart and in the hearts of many girls she inspired. Every village has a voice that carries from one end to the other. A voice that knows what's happening before the cock crows. In Amina's village, that voice belonged to Sarah, lively, talkative, and curious. She was the daughter of the village tailor and had grown up among fabrics and laughter. Her house was filled with colourful cloths, sewing needles, and the soft hum of the old pedal machine. Sarah could make a dress faster than some could cook rice, but her real gift was people. Hauwa knew everybody and everybody knew her. She was the kind of person who greeted strangers like old friends and made quiet women laugh with her jokes. If a visitor came to the village and asked where to find an items, a storyteller, or a wise elder, they were always told, "Go and ask Sarah. She will know." She and Amina had been friends since childhood. As little girls, they would walk to the stream together, skip rocks, and dream aloud about a future full of colour. While Amina was quiet and thoughtful, Sarah was loud and full of fire. They were different, but they understood each other. When Amina started her handcrafted business, Sarah was the first person to tell everyone about it. "She makes soaps that smell like mangoes," she told the women in the street. "Her baskets don't just carry things, they shine." She made a bag from old calabash. "Imagine," she told the market women. She became Amina's unofficial town crier, not for money, not for gain, but because she believed in her friend. "You have gold in your hands, Amina," she said one day. "And I will make sure the world knows." Amina smiled. "Let me just make things one at a time. Don't overpraise me." But Sarah was already planning. One morning, she dragged Amina to the women's cooperative meeting. "They need to hear you speak," she said. "I'm shy," Amina whispered. "You are not shy when your hands are dancing. Speak with the same heart," Sarah insisted. And so, for the first time, Amina stood before different village women. They were farmers, weavers, traders, and shared her story. Her hands shook, her voice trembled, but Sarah stood beside her, nodding and smiling like a proud sister. When Amina finished, there was silence, then applause. From that day, 3 women began sending their daughters to learn from Amina, all because Sarah made that connection. But Sarah didn't stop there. She spoke to her father, the tailor, and asked him to donate leftover cloth pieces for Amina's patchwork projects. She convinced a trader in the next town to carry a few of Amina's items to her stall. She even helped Amina open her first community savings account. She didn't know much about banking, but she knew someone who did, and brought him to the village to explain. Sarah was a connector of people, of ideas, of places, but she too had her struggles. Unlike Amina, Sarah had dropped out of school early to help in the family shop. She often felt left behind when others spoke of certificates, but she never let it dim her joy. One day she sat beside Amina under a mango tree. "Do you ever wish you went far away?" she asked. Amina looked up at the sky. "Sometimes, but I think our roots give us strength," Sarah smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe we're meant to bring the far away closer to here." She picked up one of Amina's handmade fans and studied it. "I'm going to take this to Fatima in Gideon Sal, she said. Fatima was Sarah's cousin, a loud, friendly trader in the busy town market where people from different villages came to shop. "If she likes it," Sarah said, "she'll talk. And when she talks, people listen." Amina chuckled. "Then take 2 fans." Sarah's visit to Gideon Sale opened a new door. Fatima loved the fans. Within a week, she asked for more items: soap, bags, mats, and jewellery. "People want things that feel like home," Fatima said. "Your friend makes magic from the soil of this land." And so, Amina's products began reaching beyond her village to nearby markets, to small towns, even to a women's conference in the city. All because Sarah had spoken. All because she believed that one voice could open many doors. Amina often said, "My hands made the items, but Sarah gave them wings." When girls came to the workshop, they found not only Amina's guidance but Hauwa's energy. She'd teach them how to speak about their work, how to smile with confidence, how to answer questions without fear. She taught them something precious: how to be heard. Over time, Sarah also began learning more. With Amina's help, she picked up basic reading again, and slowly she began writing. Her first sentence in her new notebook was, "I am Sarah. I am a connector. I am enough." The day she wrote that, Amina embraced her. "You've always been enough," she whispered. Years later, when Amina's business became well known and girls from other regions wrote letters asking to visit her workshop, Amina made sure Sarah's name was on every brochure. Sarah, head of outreach. It sounded formal, but to Sarah it meant one thing, which is belonging. Woman like Sarah, the one who carries others' dreams as if they were her own, who gives her voice to the voiceless, and who makes sure the doors of opportunity are not closed to anyone. In every village, there is always someone who seems to know how to fix everything. From repairing broken roofs to finding the best time to plant, such people are the quiet problem solvers of the community. In Amina's village, that person was Musa, the youngest son of the village blacksmith. Musa had hands that never rested. As a boy, he loved taking apart old radios and try putting them back together. He would gather scrap metal, wires, wood, and even bottle caps to make toys and tools. While other boys chased chickens, Musa chased ideas. Though he don't talk much, people knew him for his quick mind. If your bicycle chain broke or your calabash cracked, everyone said, "Take it to Musa." Musa had always admired Amina from afar, not just for her beauty, but for her boldness. He had watched her weaving baskets under the baobab tree, smiling to herself, even when others mocked her. He respected that kind of quiet fire, but he never knew how to tell her. Their paths crossed when Amina's first batch of soap molds melted under the sun. She had carved them out of soft wood, and the village heat made them bend and leak. Amina was frustrated. She sat under the tree, her hands on her head. Musa passed by with his toolbox. He paused. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. She explained. He nodded, squatted beside her, and picked up the mold pieces. "You need something stronger," he said. She sighed. "I don't have money to buy special tools." Musa smiled faintly. "I didn't say anything about money." That evening he returned with a new mold, made from old cooking pots, hammered flat, curved, and fastened with nails. It was not perfect, but it held the soap firm. Amina stared in wonder. "You made this?" He nodded. "From scraps." And just like that, a friendship was born. From then on, Musa became a silent pillar behind Amina's business. Whenever something broke, he fixed it. If she needed a new tool, he found a way to create it using local materials, bamboo, scrap metal, clay, or leather. He built her a proper drying rack for her soaps, a wooden press for her fabric patterns, and a pulley system to help carry water from the well more easily. One day, Amina asked, "How do you know how to make all these things?" Musa said, "I watch, I try, I fail, then I try again." That answer stayed with her. When Amina needed a small shelter to protect her drying goods from rain, Musa built one in 2 days using wood, palm fronds, and mud bricks. She paid him with small gift snacks, new slippers, and sometimes just a meal. But Musa never asked for anything. "This work," he said, "gives me joy. Helping you makes me feel useful." Amina smiled. "You are more than useful, Musa. You're a genius." He blushed and looked away. As the business grew, so did Musa's skills. He began designing new ways to improve the workshop. He introduced a rainwater collection system so that they will not have to fetch water all the time. He also rigged up a clay oven to speed up soap curing. People started noticing. One elder said, "That boy has gold in his brain." Soon, young boys from the village began following Musa around. They wanted to learn how to build, fix, and create. He did not see himself as a teacher, but he welcomed them anyway. Musa will tell the young boys, "If your hands are ready, your mind will follow." What many did not know was that Musa had once dreamed of becoming an engineer, but his family could not afford school fees. His father fell ill, and Musa had to stay behind to help. But he never stopped learning. Every time a traveller passed through with a machine, he drew sketches in the sand, he asked questions, he experimented with whatever he could find. One day, Amina found him sitting and drawing on a white cardboard. "What's that?" she asked. "A machine that can help shape your soap faster," he said. "I don't have all the parts yet, but one day," she touched his arm gently, "one day you will build it, and many more," Amina answered. Later, when Amina began receiving larger orders from neighbouring towns, she asked Musa to design wooden crates for packaging. He not only made them sturdy but beautiful, adding carved symbols from local culture. People should not only buy the product, he said, they should feel the story. One evening after a long day of work, Amina sat beside him. "You've done so much for me," she said, "but you don't talk about your own dream." "I dream of a small workshop," Musa finally said, "where I teach young people to build things, from what we have, from nothing." Amina grinned. "That's not a small dream, and I will help you build it." They shook hands, not as business partners, but as visionaries. From then on, Musa did not just fix things. He started documenting every invention, every tool. He began drawing blueprints on paper. Amina introduced him to a travelling NGO worker who saw his designs and promised to connect him with a youth empowerment program. Musa's face lit up. It was the first time someone from outside the village took his work seriously. Months later, when Amina's business expanded into a full cooperative, she gave Musa his own corner, which he named Musa's Workshop. There, boys learned how to build soap presses, carve wood, fix broken tools, and use their hands to change their lives. Every nail, every screw, every wire Musa used told a story of resilience. He never wore fine clothes or spoke many words, but his actions shouted hope. One of the boys once asked him, "How did you learn all this?" He smiled and answered, "I listened with my eyes and I practiced with my heart." Musa never went to a university, but he became one for his village.